Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are reading the Meno. We've had a nice little review of the Meno, where we're at and why we're reading it, why we care about understanding, being able to define things, the difference between regular education and true education. True education pointing to the realm of being, where causes, principles, and metaphysical encounters of pure mind exist. So you could call it a spiritual initiation. That's what Socrates called it. The true education is a process of some sort of preparation for a spiritual initiation where you can directly experience these principles and causes. And the principle in question at the moment is virtue. So we're interested in understanding, we're interested in giving definitions, we're interested in verifying the true nature of beauty, the true nature of justice, the true nature of mind for ourselves. And finally, we talked about being able to put it all together and function with it. If you could define things, if you can understand, and the thing that you're understanding, you can even verify in direct experience. Can you take all of that together and use it to benefit someone? And we're wondering about the connection of all that and tied together under the idea of benefit. And we're wondering about how that relates to art. Does a true art necessarily benefit? Does a true art have all of those things? And of course, we can compare it to our modern idea of art, which really doesn't exist. It's a reflection of the thoughts of our age, which is there is no truth, there is no understanding, there is no benefit, there is no... all of those things that we just talked about, which are the most important things, the highest functioning of a human being, the most important things for us, the most helpful things for us, the most helpful and needed things for society, all of those things rejected by our society. There is no actual understanding. Everything is just opinion. There is no actual way of defining things. Just point to things that you like, that you've seen with your physical senses. There is no realm of being where you can verify in direct experience those eternal truths, principles that we have been understanding and using as our model. There is no experience of that. There's just the physical world. If that, even that might be illusion. There's definitely no level of, no such thing as mind or level of reality of mind or way of experiencing God directly. There's no. Get out of here. So there's no direct apprehension of being, what Socrates has been talking about, the truth. And of course, as a consequence, there is no functioning of all of those things together as a whole too. Benefit. So, our idea of art necessarily can't have any of those things. In fact, it's usually understood as a creative expression of the rejection of those sorts of things. Ironic or something like that. Anything can be art. Art is whatever you want it to be. So it could be fun to compare this idea from what we are wondering about in truth. That is, what is art and how does it relate to those three things we gain from our reading? How does true art gain from our reading? And could we say that there is ultimately an art of the logos? If so, could we say it's the highest art? Considering this understanding of how to understand things is needed to understand anything, could it be a prerequisite art to all arts? Or could we even say it's the highest art of all of the arts? These are questions that we have and are carrying as we read. And of course, the art of the logos tied to dialectic. What is the dialectic? That's what Meno is struggling with the most. Are all of those things tied with the dialectic? What would it mean if it was? What would it mean if the same paradigm or pattern that we are here to learn in order to understand things and define things, what would it mean if that same life's journey, life's work, is what's needed to apprehend being? Education would be something very different. If what we need to understand, which is normally the realm of, I don't know, secular Western education and direct experience of mind, self, or reality, normally portioned away with Eastern spirituality, what if it was the same thing ultimately? One less division in the world, one more way of unifying our souls and our species. That would be nice. And if the dialectic is also needed to extend that direct apprehension of goodness through understanding in order to benefit, then how does dialectic tie in with art? Lots and lots of questions. That's the whole point. We look for questions and we carry them, because to carry a question is to be on a quest. Hooray. So that's where we are. Meno doesn't like the fact that he doesn't understand, and he doesn't even know how to understand. He's pointing to things that he likes and saying, this is what it means to be good. Can we teach this? Now, it's interesting also to note it's the same kind of problems we are facing as a species currently. There is a certain class of people that can only point to physical things that they like and say, that's what's good. How do we teach that? And those people who don't ask the questions about what good really is, but rather, like Meno, just points to the things that they grew up with that they like or that they benefit from personally. For example, in America, a lot of white rich people benefit personally from a society that has systemic racism built into it. And what are they yelling? It's bad to teach an understanding of systemic racism. That's... and then some word used to vilify it. Woke, DEI or something. There's another word for it, I forget what it is. Critical race theory, that's the one. Can this be taught? That's what Meno is asking. Can we teach virtue? Well, do you know what it is? Or are you like these people, these worst kinds of people, ignorant racists, who are just pointing to things. They don't know what the good really is. They don't know what virtue really is. They're just pointing to things they happen to like and benefit from. Meno being a rich kid himself. So, one of those sorts of people, and it's easy to see with the most, in the lives of those most struggling from their pathologo, so it's easy to see in conservatives or right-wingers or fascists or Nazis and that sort of thing. It's easy to see because it's just the same human quest. We either pick up the dialectic and become masters of the art ourselves, or we become slaves to the unsuspected false beliefs about self and reality. And depending on how much character and power we were born into, that plays out with various level of disastrous effects to our soul, to our loved ones, and to our species and planet. So it's easy to see in them, but we have to catch when we fall into this trap. When do we insist on our ignorance rather than being like Socrates and engaging with wonder and curiosity? When do we attack the messenger like Meno instead of addressing the reasoning itself? And this turning point is where we are in the text, because Meno knows he doesn't know how to understand or define. And he says as much. Socrates is about to, we would suspect, teach him the dialectic again. But instead, Socrates goes on a bit of a tangent, although not really a tangent, goes on a bit of a side quest to teach how to understand some basic geometry to his slave boy in front of Meno, in order to demonstrate that it's okay to be wrong and acknowledge you're wrong and change your mind. All of these things are good things. So those people that we are talking about, the more entrenched in their ignorance, the less they've heard of the logos and dialectic, and the less midwifery they've done on their problem, the more entrenched they are, and the less likely they are to admit to being wrong about something. Sometimes understandably, because around similar people like themselves, like Meno, who aren't interested in the actual truth, they're just looking for an opportunity to catch anyone being wrong so they can crush them. Because without truth and knowing and being, as well as understanding, as well as the dialectic to function with it, without those things, what makes you alpha? What makes you great? What makes you a knower? We all seek to be the knower. Without all the necessary elements of knowing that we mentioned, that we're reading about and learning ourselves, what makes you more knowing than someone else? Usually it's the ability to crush the spirit of another person. Make them feel bad about themselves. Make them feel like they're inadequate, and therefore they give up their curiosity, their questions, their understanding, their seeing for themselves in order to be a slave to your ignorance, that person's ignorance, the person cosplaying as the knower. So it can be understandable why people who grew up in this world fight tooth and nail to never be wrong about anything. It was a perfect call, never did anything wrong. I am the most law-abiding president in history. Nevertheless, with people like ourselves and the people like our chat and our Discord and our community, hooray. With these sorts of people who are actually interested in truth, understanding, direct experience, so knowledge for ourselves, but also to combine them to benefit, to use intelligence and care to benefit ourselves and others, and wonder about whether or not that's officially virtue. Around us, around these people, around Socrates, it's the best thing to see that you're mistaken, and not the worst. Meno is being shown that right now. That's where we jump in. Let's do it. The first line, see, we're at a nice ancient Greek beach. You can see it's the beach because look, in ancient Greece, because ancient Greek ruins. So we are in ancient Greek times. Now, I don't think the buildings would be ruins back when they were actually buildings. But maybe this is a this is a building project. They're building the temple over here. Here we are back in time where they're just starting to build. It's not ruins, it's the start of a construction project. And then we go to the park by the beach and read this big scroll. It looks like it's a scroll that we found in a bottle on the beach. But actually it's an ancient text. It's the map to the One Piece. Only the One Piece is the One Self. That's silly, but it's true. It's weird. And the first line is, Meno, or Menon, can you tell me, O Socrates, whether virtue is teachable? First line. We're halfway through and we are looking at it's okay to be wrong. before learning how to understand, learning how to define, applying that learning to virtue, so we know what virtue is before we can even ask this question, Meno, whether or not we can teach it to somebody else. It's not a bad question, there's just work to do. This is one of the questions people who have benefited by having come across someone aware of the Logos, a philosopher or a midwife. It's so significant. It's literally what we're here for. It's literally the paradigm for, as we said, art, benefit, understanding, spirituality. But also in midwifery, it's the paradigm for how to understand and solve problems. It is the most significant thing. People who have gotten lucky enough to have come across that sort of person at the right time in their own learning so that they actually listen and actually give it a shot, those people want to share it with others because it's, I was going to say it's so good, but it's almost the prerequisite for goodness. It's not really fair because there are a lot of good people who are coming across the Logos at their own speed, but at a slow pace and without understanding the paradigm of what they're participating in so they can do it better, but also so they can understand any blocks that may come up. It's just that good. But normally, it's very hard to communicate that to people. For lots of good reasons, but... So if mastery of the dialectic or the Logos and improving oneself is tied to virtue, this question, can we share it with others? Can we teach it to others? It's a primary question. For some people, it can function as a distraction because, first of all, we're here to help ourselves before we help other people, whether or not they participate or want the help. And we can't really help until we have mastered this art ourselves. I mean, we can help, but not to the extent that we could. So, helping others is secondary, but it's still an important question. So it's not a bad question, you know. You just need to do some work. So if Meno has reincarnated and has come across this video on YouTube, please subscribe to the Discord and join our quest. To have a question is to be on a quest. So join our party on the quest to know whether virtue is teachable, which does require us to learn a few things first, including that it's okay to be wrong. The word aporia has been used already to describe the state of being or state of mind of being stung, unable to speak, stung into silence, but also curious and puzzled and confused. And Meno doesn't like this. He likes being certain, which is something that we're discovering in midwifery as well. The state of mind of certainty. I know I'm a bad person. I know my kid's a bad kid, and I'm so knowing and so certain I'm willing to use violence to crush that kid's spirit, to teach him the truth, teach him a lesson, a hard lesson. Or I know I'm rubbish, so I'm going to listen to that voice when it comes up that tells me I'm no good. Certainty. So as we go through midwifery, we need to recognize that state of certainty and replace it with aporia, wonder, openness, curiosity, in order to even begin the game. It's like a maxim. It's like an axiom. In geometry, there are certain fundamental principles that you can't prove in the physical world, that you have to take for granted to play. So Euclid is the example. Euclid is a complete system of understanding of geometry. But to begin, you have to build it on these 5 axioms that you can't prove. At least not in geometry, but you have to take for granted to play. Similarly, this state that we're talking about here, aporia, or being stung, like you're in the ocean and a jellyfish has stung you and you can't do anything, but you really feel like you need to struggle and swim. Being stung, that's aporia. Open and curious, here we go. Puzzled and numb, just as the stingray does. Meno doesn't like that, but we are learning that that's the best state to be in. At least Socrates here is saying, well, you called me a flat-headed fish. You know, again, it's counterattack to his certainty, his false beliefs that he's certain of and he likes and he benefits from in the short term. So he calls him a flat-headed stingray. But then Socrates says, you know what? If the stingray is self-numb, self-benumbing, makes himself puzzled, and thus it makes others numb as a consequence, then I am like it. But not on the other hand if I'm not. For I do not make you and the others puzzled from my knowing all the answers, being in self-abundance. No. It's because I am even more lacking. Now the word aporia also means in lack. Don't know. Puzzled. At sea. And now, going on a little bit further, to about halfway through the text, we come to the conclusion. About the slave boy. That's where we are. Let's jump in here. Socrates says to Meno, "Do you in turn have in mind, O Meno, to which point he has already walked along the road of recollection?" Important point. If what the slave boy is realizing, which is essentially Pythagoras, which is what? This here. If you have a 2x2 square and you double, and which is has 4 as its area, if you double it 4x4, you don't get double the area. So a 4x4 square isn't 8, which would be like this. It's actually 16. So it's 4 times as much. So we're doubling it squared. So 2 becomes 4, 2 becomes 4, and it's 4 squared that gives you this. He hadn't learnt it before, but only through pointing to some diagrams and Socrates asking questions, he came to recognize it for himself. So Socrates is saying he must have remembered it. Where else could he have gotten it from? So learning as remembering. Socrates to Meno, do you know at what point he has already walked along the road of recollection? Since on the one hand, at first he did not know any line from the 8-foot space from which the 8-foot space arose, just as now he does not know yet. But then at that time he thought he knew self indeed. Okay. For those who want to read at a multi-level, the self, of course, refers to 3 levels: the physical world, the metaphysical world, and the ultimate, the one self. So he thought he knew the specific it. What's the it? The subject. How to make an 8-foot space, which is, you don't double a 4-foot space, you only double one of the lines. So it's 2 times 4 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This one here. That's what he needed to have to create an 8-foot space. So he did not know that self, but also the word self can point us to the honorific, which is being. So what's the being in question? Virtue. So we could apply this maybe as a principle, at least keep the question open. He thought he knew virtue indeed. And of course, ultimately, what's our biggest problem? Knowing the self. And carrying an unsuspected false belief about the nature of the self, which is our pathologos. So what? So microphone. So we always have three levels of meaning that we can mine for when we come across the word self. He thought he knew self indeed, and boldly answered as if he knew. But he was not led to think, and he was not to think he was at a loss, or puzzled, or wrong, or aporia. Whereas now he has been led to think that he is aporia, and just as he does not know, neither does he think that he knows. There's a difference. Before he didn't know and thought he did. That's true, says Meno. Is it not so then that he has to be better benefited now in regards to that object which he does not know? It is to me, says Meno. Therefore, by making him puzzled and numb, just as the stingray does, I don't know, I can't say anything, I'm at a loss. I can't give my big speeches on the pulpit for 3 hours about how people should spend their money and give them to the church. I can't give these big speeches about whatever, politics or philosophy or whatever anymore. I'm puzzled. By making him puzzled and numb, have we done him harm? There does not appear to be any harm, as far as I am concerned, says Meno. Then have we indeed made him prepared in a certain way, as it is reasonable in relation to in what way that which is to be discovered has to be. For now he will search. He's going to do something now he knows he's wrong. And he will gladly do it, since he does not know. Whereas at that time, he thought that he could go before large audiences and on numerous occasions, and could speak well and with ease about that double space and how it must arise from the line whose length is doubled. He's giving us half a metaphor. What sorts of people in our society do this? Go before large audiences on numerous occasions and seemingly speak well and with ease, even though they don't know anything about the topic. How many? Well, they're wrong. How many? Can we say 100 out of 100? Can we get close? Maybe not that much. Maybe 80% of people who... politicians and religious folk. And it's a question. How many people do this? Not about doubling the area of a square, but about virtue. And whether or not we can teach it by burning all the books. Now, you might say, well, okay, fortunately I don't live in a place where we literally burn books like in those other places, like in America or whatever, or in other places like that. But this book has been burnt. The library that these books and all of the 1,000 years of study on these books that we are reading right now, 1,000 years of study on them, burnt. Currently, we don't read this. We don't read in this way. We don't read along the dialectic method. We don't actually read it for ourselves. Usually you go to college, you read commentaries, because who's going to read 1,000,000 books on Kant and Nietzsche, and why even waste your time on Socrates? Isn't he in the past? Haven't we learnt so much more since then? Socrates didn't have internet. How smart could he be? So normally we don't even read the book ourselves, let alone learn how to read. And if we did, the translations of these books have all been garbage, because same issue. Our translators have the same issue. But we have the Greek, and we can read for ourselves, and hooray for us. Hooray. Therefore, do you think that he would have tried to seek or learn that which he thought he knew but did not know, before he fell into this puzzled, aporia state, and until he was led to think that he did not know, and then was longing to know? It does not appear to me, O Socrates, that he would have gone out and done any of that things to make himself better. Ooh. Accordingly then, he has benefited by the numbing. So after all that, accordingly then, these are one of the big words you should look out for, because you are trying to, I hope, if you're playing, trying to make as many little dialectics as you can from each of the different sections. It'll help you remember the text. It'll also help you remember the argument, so you can reason this way to yourself or someone else you might meet. But that's the reading. That's the demonstration of what we're defining. And if you are doing this word ara should jump out. Accordingly then. Also, what might stand out to you is the fact that we have had a long series of reasoning. Okay, often that's the division stage, where you're dividing up the definition. What's the definition? Aporia. How does it demonstrate? We pulled it out of Meno. Remember, there are 4: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. There's only 4. And here is a flamingo. Only 4. And you can tell he's a flamingo because he's got little wings. He's got little feet. There's his feet. For only 4 categories that we are trying to use and frame our thinking through. Now, we don't know that this is the paradigm of thinking yet. We don't know that it's the model for all those things we mentioned. We are learning that it's seemingly the case, because every time that Meno tries to define something, he can't. Whereas every time Socrates does define something and show an understanding of something, he uses the same pattern. So what started with an open-mindedness to see if it turns out, we don't know, but we're in aporia. We don't know about this thing called dialectic. We don't know if there is an intellectual and spiritual golden age and tradition that humanity has to rediscover or remember or pick up again after the counterattack for 2,500 years, allowing us to unify our souls in both understanding and experience or state of mind, unify humanity because there need not be any divisions anymore if understanding and knowing is open to everyone, as opposed to belief, which is based on the family and in opposition to other beliefs. We don't know that's true, but we read it anyway, and now we are seeing that, we're finding out why it's true. By reading, that's the definition. Because Socrates is giving us the definition, he's also demonstrating it to us. And he's also demonstrating it in many different ways with Meno, so there's your division. In fact, that should be enough to come to a conclusion if you're doing the dialectic. So there you've got your first 4. Some conclusion for yourself. I really encourage you to do it and have fun. Play with it. Read the first half or reflect on these videos with someone over coffee. So maybe you've come to a conclusion yourself or with other party members over coffee or in the Discord. Something about the significance of the dialectic. And it's not just your belief anymore, because you've outlined it in a 4-part system of understanding that is the model of the dialectic, the model of reasoning itself. So your friend can also play. You can add to it or point out somewhere where you missed the mark. You can share it on Discord. You can make a movie about it. You can build a whole anime around a dialectic, and it will probably kick ass, because the animes that seem to kick ass, if it's centered around something true and profound and universal, it has a universal appeal. So, let's see if we can find a dialectic here. Definition. Is it virtue? Is it dialectic? What are we defining right now? Learning? Learning as remembering? Can we have a demonstration of it? Well, Meno has demonstrated a kind of learning as remembering, because he didn't know this before. He's demonstrated something about being at a loss and puzzled and okay with it, and balloons, aporia. So he's demonstrating both. He's demonstrating the dialectic because he followed the dialectic. And he's demonstrating the idea of benefit because he's, as we just read, he has benefited. Now he has demonstrated those things, demonstrated the dialectic, demonstrated being in that state of aporia. So which of these ideas was are you going to start with? Is this a dialectic on learning as remembering? Is this a dialectic on the dialectic? Is this a dialectic on the open state of curiosity and wonder of aporia? Is this a dialectic on benefit? I don't know, but that's a good question. Do all four if you want, or pick one. Or maybe that's the puzzle, because now, definition, demonstration, what is he demonstrating? What is Socrates demonstrating through the slave boy? Division. Often division is the steps of arguments leading to a conclusion. The reasoning part of it. Either if it is or if it isn't. And then there's the conclusion. And what we see here is we've got this line of reasoning that went on for a while, and there's shapes, and we did stuff on the board. See all of our good work doing maths. So pretty impressive. Doing maths for fun on Twitch and YouTube. Pretty badass. Flamingo agrees. And after all that, we came to a conclusion that accordingly then, ara, that's the Greek. A is A, P is R, so it's A-R-A. Accordingly then, he has benefited from the numbing. Whoops. Here we go. R, see here, look. Ara. The Greek is A, and the P means R in Greek. Accordingly then, he has benefited from being stung, realizing he doesn't know. Because he was going to give these great speeches when he was wrong about this math. So, if that's the conclusion, could this be the end of a dialectic on benefit? It's one of those key questions. How do we benefit? Is benefit tied to virtue? Let's keep reading. It appears to me he has benefited by being aporia, which makes us wonder when Meno said, "Oh, you dastardly Socrates, you flat-headed fish, you made me so numb in my soul I couldn't speak about virtue and stuff when I thought I was very well educated. I was the best debate bro of all time." Often we call these people debate bros nowadays. They don't know anything about virtue. They don't even think that truth is. They can give good speeches on it. Start a Patreon. I am willing to start a Patreon myself. But not because we do debate bro stuff, because we show what it is, how it's bad, and what's the opposite. It appears to me that he has benefited. Consider then that arising from this puzzle, he will discover whatever he is searching for, along with me, and I shall do nothing else than asking questions. Asking questions. So Socrates is teaching us how to do this. How do we do this art of all our arts? The only thing that can really benefit the soul, if benefiting has to go through this. So asking questions, that's all. I mean, you're not going to insist on your beliefs. You're actually asking questions. A lot of people I know don't like questions, and they like to prove the validity of their belief through genocides and things like that, and guns and bombs and exploiting people through capitalism. But you're just asking questions? What a strange man. What a strange man. I'll just be asking questions and I won't be teaching him. Nor will I be teaching him. But be on guard to see if at any point you find me teaching and displaying to self instead of questioning him about his beliefs. To the boy. Listen to me, boy. This is Socrates now to the slave boy. Listen to me, boy. That's how Socrates sounded back then. For you tell me, is this not on the one hand? You tell me, is this not our 4-foot space? Do you understand? I guess he's talking about this, the 4-foot space. Flamingo told me to fix my posture. Four-foot space. Do you understand? The boy says, I do indeed. And there's this in Greek. Then can we add this other one that is equal to self? Yes. And this third one, which is equal to each of these? Yes. Is it not so that we can fill this space in the corner angle entirely so? Okay, so over here, looks like we've got, I can't point to it, but on this diagram, we have these four squares in the corner. So we're adding another one and a third one, and then we can fill in the space in the corner. So we've got a 4x4 square here. Or these four here with these four and these four, add a third one, he said, and then fill in the corner, he said. Then has this become anything other than 4 equal spaces? Yes. What next? Has it become anything else? And I think this ancient Greek was weird with its negatives and double negatives and stuff. Is this 4 equal spaces? Yes. What next? How many more times has the whole become than this part? 4 times. The whole has become, this is now 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's zoom in a little bit. One, 2, 3, 4 times this one here. But we were required to generate double. Remember, the question was, can you make double the area of that first square? I remember, says the boy. Is it not so then that this very line that extends from corner to corner cuts each of these 4 in 2? Here's where Pythagoras is coming in. So, where are we? Well, Socrates asked, hey, this 2 by 2 gives you 4. Can you double it? And he would say, yeah, easy. Make it a 4 by 4. Uh-oh, turns out it's 16. But that's 4 times. But if we drew a line in the middle, like this, we cut it in half. So that 16 would be cut in half. Neat. Because we're after 8, right? Is it not so then that these 4 equal lines that I generate enclose the space? What? These 4 equal lines then? Don't know yet. Consider then how much large is this space? I don't understand. Are there not 4 each of these inner lines that we have cut each of these spaces in half? Yes. How many feet are there in this space? 4. And how many in this space? 2 feet. What's he doing? think he's saying, let's cut it this way, and then this way. It should be through the middle, actually. That, and then this way. Maybe. Whoops. Oh, I see. Cuts each one of these 4 spaces in 2. I'm with him now. So when we do a line, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these are cut in half. So what? Are there not 4 each of these inner lines that we have just cut in half, or what? Yes. How many feet are there in this space? 4. Because they're 4 squares, or 1 by 1. Therefore, how many feet has it become? 2. What then is relation of the 4 to the part? Double. Then how many feet has this space become? 8 feet. From which line? From this one. From the line which extends corner to corner of the 4 spaces. Yes. So what has he done? Right, we wanted to get this guy here into double, which would be 8, because there are 4 here. This doesn't do it, just doubling both doesn't do it. But also 3 by 3 is 9, so that doesn't do it either. So what do? We make a 4 by 4, and then we cut it in half by going from corner to corner. It should go through the middle. Anyway, let's do it a bit better. Something like that. Okay. And now we've got this is a half, this is a half, this is a half, this is a half. 4 squares would be 4. So we cut them all in half, giving us 2. But then he said, oh, by the way, this whole square is untouched. How many is there? 4. So we got 4 plus 2 equals 8. No. We've also got 5 who's untouched, and we've got 15 here who's untouched. So we've got 4 of this square. We've got this guy here that wasn't cut, and this guy that here wasn't cut. So we got 2 uncuts, 6, plus these 4 which are cut in half equals 8. So if we cut the square in half, we get 8, which is what we were after. Let's hope you're going somewhere with this, Socrates. I'm making us do math. Thus, the wise indeed call this diagonal. That can be us. Let's do what the wise people do, says Socrates. The wise call this the line the diagonal. So that if the name of this line is the diagonal, then the double space, as you say, O child of Meno. Why is he calling child of himself? Anyway, so the double space would arise from the diagonal, very much so. In what way does it appear to you, Meno? Was any opinion which he replied not of self? No, says Meno, my little slave boy said everything himself. And yet he did, which was what? This diagonal, this cutting the 4x4 in a diagonal doubles the area. Now, those who are flashy at math recognizes this as Pythagoras. Because we've got this triangle here is 8. So you've got 4 by 4 triangle. Because that's 4 squared, which is 16. Plus 4 squared is 16. That gives you 32 equals this line, the diagonal, squared, c squared. So what's the square root of 32? 8. Which is right. There you go. Pythag. Did this slave boy know Pythagoras? And Meno says nope. And yet he did indeed know, as we should, the Pythagoras, how to double the area of a square. What you say is true. But these opinions were indeed within self, or what? Yes. Accordingly then, for one who does not know concerning... Okay, let's highlight some stuff. I haven't highlighted for a while. He did not know a short while ago. That's highlightable. Socrates saying, I'm just going to ask questions. Nothing else than asking questions. That's highlightable. Let's put it in green. Because that's what we want to learn how to do. How do we benefit people? Asking certain sorts of directed questions. They were indeed within self. That's funny language because within it refers to space, but we know what he means. And self isn't spatial. But yeah, we are remembering. Accordingly then, for one who does not know concerning that which they do not know, there still exists within them true opinions. And we see doxia here. And we see the word for truth, which is Greek. I can't remember. Let's copy this. Doxia we remember easily because all of these debate bros and almost every single person calling themselves a philosopher walking the planet currently are what Socrates called people who love opinions. That's why they like to debate. And it's just opinions on opinions, and anyone else who watches it hates it because it's stupid, doesn't get anywhere, doesn't solve problems. The world is still dying and burning, and we're still fighting Nazis because...
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems. Meanwhile...
That was a good drop. I made that drop before the stream today. I hope you could hear it. I might have to boost it if I can. Can I make it more louder? I think I can. I'll have to figure out how to do that. So, those of you who probably know my channel probably know the channel. Some more news with Warbo, the news puppet. Smartest news puppet I've ever seen. If you don't, check them out on YouTube. They are good. I think a good source of news and reflective, funny, everything. It's really good. Now when I say the good, I don't mean that good. I mean that good. They are great YouTube channel and source of news and entertainment. That's what the drop was from his latest one.
This guy had to admit.
What?
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems. Meanwhile,
no one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems. Meanwhile, and then he goes on to the next topic. Funny because it's true. And funny because that's how news does things. This is happening. Meanwhile, this is happening. Meanwhile, this is happening. And the fact that they say this happened, meanwhile, is them actively ignoring the reflection on the causes of the problem, which they should be doing as journalists, and then addressing those causes to find solutions that are universally, objectively true and not a matter of opinion. That's what meanwhile means when you see it on the news. So that's why it's funny.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems. Meanwhile,
you could put that at the end of pretty much any news article. Until, of course, we awaken philosophy, name of the channel, celebration, and we get some confetti. until we awaken philosophy and figure out how to address problems, which is this. The logos. And that's why we don't like these people calling themselves news or calling themselves philosophers, because they're not learning anything and they're not solving problems. And the reason is because Socrates calls them philodoxia. Philosophia is love of wisdom. Philosophy. Philos, love, sophia, wisdom. Philodoxia means love of opinions. Socrates says, by the way, these people are going to call themselves philosophers. They're the opposite. They're philodoxias. It says that at the end of book 5, I think, in the Republic. It might even be the last sentence of book 5 in the Republic. So that's how we recognize doxia here. And another word we should recognize in Greek is the word that means true. Because it's one of, if not the highest term that we're after. And it would be, perhaps, as we explore in the Republic, the closest term or closest idea to the self. And it's the self that we're after. And on the other side of the game, it's the false belief about the self that causes our problems. So, let's find out this word. Here we go. And I need to get more stuffies up close to my desk so I can play with them live stream. Wait. Flamingo. And there's his feet. Wait. The feet is for Patreon subscribers only. Grippers are for tippers. There we go. Whoops, he's falling off my thing. Sit here for a while. So we copy this, copy the word true in the Greek, paste it into here. Copy it here, put it in Google Translate. Altheus. That's not the word true that I was hoping it would be. How about this one? What? False. Okay. Wonder. Huh? Wait a minute. Uh-oh. Which of these is the right one? Here we go. Unconcealed. True. Okay. Oh, right. There are other words for true, like I think arte, that point to the highest level of truth. So if this one is unconcealed, then it might be, I don't know. Is it truth? Okay. Not forgetting. Oh, not forgetting is interesting. See, that makes more sense. Unconcealed, opposite of false, and also not forgetting. That's an interesting idea. Oh, okay, right. So this might be the Greek word that is attached to both ideas. Altes. Let's copy that in English. I don't know. Because it's true opinions, but also it is recovered memories, as he's saying. Add a note. Paste it in there. Altes, which means true, uncovered, or not forgotten. So, even though he doesn't know, he has some uncovered, remembered opinions about these matters of which he does not know. So it appears, says Meno. So, now, on the one hand, the self-opinions have just been awakened in self. Oh, awakening philosophy. We have a party. We'll do that. Get some confetti going. Get some cheering going.
Wow.
Get some cheering and more cheering. Nope. They were laughing. People having fun.
That's one for the blooper reel. Wow. That's one for the blooper reel. That's one for the blooper.
Brand.
That's one for the blooper reel.
For sure the buttons. Because it wasn't us saying the name of the channel this time. It was Socrates. There we go. The self-opinions, Doxia. Altos, of course, for self. That's one we'll never forget. I hope. Have just been awakened in self, just as if in a dream. He's been woken from a dream of ignorance. But if indeed someone will continue questioning self about these selves often and in many ways. Okay, so Socrates is telling someone to do something. Who is he telling?
You.
No, that's a terrible voice for a flamingo.
I'm sorry. I haven't had my coffee yet.
There we go. Drink some coffee. There we go. I haven't practiced any voices. Anyway, you. He will have a voice sometime. Right now, he's got a frog in his throat. But he can dance. Very talented flamingo. You! He's telling you to do something, right? Flamingo agrees. What is he telling us, you, to do? He's telling us to continue questioning self. Okay, so continue questioning. Number one. What do we do every day on this channel? Continue to look for questions, hold questions. To carry questions is to be on a quest. Max your questions, level up your questions. Oops. Hang on. Hitting the wrong button. Redo. Okay. And now I press continue questioning and I press this button. There. Continue to question. When do we give up questioning? Doesn't say. Probably never. And what are we questioning when we question? We're questioning self. We are not talking to the facades, the masks, the in midwifery we know, these debate bros, these people who are just trying to use logic to out-debate their opponent to prove their nonsense right. Harmful nonsense, because that's the nonsense that binds together their religion or their culture or their family or their community. We're not talking to that stooge for their own ignorance. We are looking at and to the self. That is what we're talking about. That is more accurately them. The pathologos is something that's human, that's generated because of the way humans have evolved and grow up. And of course, because we have a soul that actually does seek truth and beauty, so that when we're little, the appearance we can mistake. The beautiful appearance of our authority figures, usually parents, we mistake for truth, because within our soul we seek truth and beauty, which unite ultimately in being. So that's the cause of our problems. We're not talking to our problems. We are trying to appeal to and generate to and invite participation in the self. I think music is very similar. When I play music, sometimes people come up and they have that mask on. They want to be the knower. Like, oh yeah, you know this music. One guy, I think a couple of days ago said, I played this song. I thought it was a beautiful song. And his reaction was, know any Spanish music? He wasn't Spanish. I wasn't Spanish. Clearly I don't know Spanish. And I laughed and I said, well, what did you think of that song? That was good. And I could tell his state of mind. I could tell he asked me a question that would get me to say, oh no, I'm ignorant of that. So he can use that space to jump on and push his own bullshit, his own false beliefs from an appearance of certainty, but also by diminishing the other person. That's religion. Hey, there's a reason why original sin, the teaching of religion, is original sin. You are not a wonderful divine creature. You are a naughty bad person who has to sit in the corner and take this punishment. And part of that punishment is me insisting my false beliefs on you and insisting you reject asking questions and you reject self. And of course, you reject mind. Those are the big three of the pathologos. Reject your own questions and development of understanding for blind allegiance to false beliefs that are harmful. That's part of the mask. You reject yourself. Don't pursue your self goals. Don't wonder about the nature of self. Be a slave to the family tradition culture. And the middle one, being or mind. Don't look at the objective, true, experiential reality. You can't know the mind of God. Look at what you did to Jesus. You made him suffer on that cross that we see every day at school and at church or whatever. You are lesser. Yourself, reality or mind, and logos. Those are the big three. 1, 2, and 3 hypotheses of Parmenides. What's Socrates? And we're not talking to that. We're not talking to that mask that sacrificed those things. We are talking to those things. So I'm still figuring out how to most artfully engage with those people who approach me when I play music in that way. Often religious people are the worst. They're the ones who try and nitpick the most so they can pretend to be the knower. And they have to, because the opinions that make them a knower that they're very certain of are usually the stupidest and most easily disprovable and most easily shown to be harmful. So they're really got to get to work at making you feel bad about yourself, so you listen to that junk without asking questions, without understanding, not giving birth to the truth within you, tyrannically forcing their bollocks on you so they can toe the line for their ignorant tradition that's causing their problems. You can't say all that. That's true, but you can't say it. It's okay for this community, because if you're this far into this kind of a video, you're open and curious, and you have an amount of courage and integrity to reflect on yourself. And as we're reading, be wrong about things. The thing that Socrates is saying is a state of mind that's absolutely necessary, and he cherishes being stung, aporia, that he just showed this kid needs to be aware of so he can benefit. The very thing that is needed for benefit is the least desirable, the least honored thing in religion, because you have to be certain. So certain you're willing to accept beliefs that contradict evidence or beliefs that can't be proven. What are formerly in psychology called absurd beliefs. Can't say all that. So what can you do? Well, I'm still figuring it out, but I think what Socrates is on here might be a clue. Address the self. Don't address that mask. Don't try and reason with that mask. The mask is specifically opposed to reason. The more reason you give it, the more the mask will feel like it's won by shutting down reason. The job of people within religion is to shut down reason. So their beloved beliefs aren't questioned. Their images of the liars who lied to them are not questioned. They are beautiful. Oh, they're so wise and angelic. Mum and dad and my priest and everyone else. And so those people in authority ultimately never get questioned for the way that they abuse their followers. So the more reasoning isn't going to work. Just make them more happy about being a debate bro. So instead, appealing or inviting that person to play a different game. A game that allows them to participate in self. In whatever way music can do that for them. Well, in a beneficial, ideally, but yeah. Through wonder and curiosity, perhaps, participate in self. Not that mask. That's dumb. Everyone's got that. It's dumb. It's baby brain. It's where your baby brain lives. And only fascists and con artists and grifters appeal to that. Not because they believe it, but they know you believe it and you can be manipulated if you press those right buttons. Welcome to the Trump party. He doesn't believe any of that crap. He just knows that if he presses those buttons, he'll get those believers wearing those masks to follow him so he can exploit them and abuse them. But he's quite open about that because that's making money. He's not shy about telling people he's abusing them for his grift. Anyway, don't appeal to that, says Socrates. Appeal to the self. Look for the self. And continue to question self about these selves. Okay? 3 things already. Number 1. Questioning. Dialectic. Logos. Number 2, the self, the highest term. And number 3, selves. And as we talked about earlier today, the selves is the honorific. Like in Japanese, they say, Pikachu-chan. Chan is an honorific, it's like a title. But it's a title in Greek that means the ideal in the highest. The highest. In being. Before we were talking about we're talking about reading the word altos, which is self, which is what we really want to be happy about. There we go, that's us. Super happy, and our arms up because we're cheering. And there's our round head. No. How about this? There we go. It's us. Self. It has the lesser reading, which is the particular, which is to do with usually the physical. Let's move this over a little bit. Physical realm. Physical realm. We see with our senses. We have the greater, which is the honorific. Another word for greater is honorific. Well, honorific can apply here. Honorific is the greater. Honorific. Which means, so self, like self-beauty, not the particular, but the eidos. E-I-D-O-S. The aspect of being. Formerly translated as forms in education, in our current educational system, which has made a fundamental mistake. It's not a form, it's a way of beholding being, it's an aspect of being. It means to behold, which means it's in the realm of being. So it's the realm of spiritual, non-physical, what do we call it? Let's say metaphysical and be fancy. Bhysical or spiritual realm. Or the realm of being. If we're adding another term on this analogy, you have to find its partner. Whoop. There we go. So what does the world of being reflect into? The world of becoming. This is the thing that's always in changing. So people who don't look to principles, who say, I bought Twitter because I want freedom. But freedom for me to be a Nazi, not freedom for you to criticize my Nazi stuff, says Elon Musk, as he bans people from the platform, and that makes people irritated who are not Nazi bootlickers, because it's not a principle. Same thing with the politicians. We can be rich, we can do insider trading, we don't have to pay our speeding tickets, but you do. One rule for thee, one rule for me. That's hypocrisy or corruption. To understand the cause of it, this is where principles lie. Because being has a scope over all of the becoming. That's why the naturally kindest and smartest people seem to like to understand principles and look for principles and try and apply principles to solve problems, and also causes, which are here as well. Whereas in the physical world, there are no principles. Just win by beating out, getting to the apple before the other animal gets to the apple. So Elon Musk is confused, but I should be a billionaire. Look at how good I was at scamming everyone to get all the physical things. It's my team. I win. Don't be sad. You just lost the game. Lying and corruption. There is no higher principle or truth that we should seek, or actual benefiting or actual evolution we can have if we stop fighting each other and dividing each other over petty, childish bollocks, and we leave the physical world of becoming and turn our mind or attention to understanding being. That's what we're doing here. That's what philosophy is, and that allows you to understand principles that you can use and demand from any leader. I demand that the rules have to be principles that are for everyone. Says everyone in 1 year at the end of 2025, because we will all have awakened philosophy. Recognize this as a true universal principle, and therefore we will all always demand this of any leader, be they a politician or even a small business owner, who can also be a petty tyrant. Or sometimes more than a petty tyrant, just be a tyrant. Got enough money, the oligarchs. So, after the greater is the ultimate. And that's the oneself. Oneself. Not much more you can say about it. You can't say, you can reject these. It's not being, it's not becoming. It's not the metaphysical realm, because you can experience the metaphysical realm. That's the whole point. That's nous. That's verifying our understanding, indirect experience of it, spiritual or metaphysical. Let's put the word spiritual there. Profound experiences. Spiritual. You actually know it because you're feeling it. You are it. Spiritual. Or metaphysical. This is what makes, one of the things that makes, there we go, makes philosophy different than modern physics. This is the physics, this is the spirituality. And what Socrates is saying, hey, by the way, if he is just remembering, where does he get his memory from? He didn't learn about the diagonal from the physical world. No one told him. I didn't even tell him right now. I just asked questions. So where did it come from? Where does knowledge come from? This realm? This realm? That's what we wonder about. We make a question out of. So that's what we're talking about when it comes to ADOS. That's why there are these three ways of unlocking the meaning of the text that you won't get unless you have the word self there. One of the things, by the way, problems are blocked here. So problems of the past translators of Plato reject this stuff here. So they never translate the word self. They'll say it. It is the particular. It. Put it here. It. The subject of the sentence. Because that's where our pathologos keeps us. Because this is the principles that can challenge our problems. And after being free of our problems, we can come on to seek our destiny. The destiny of man. Universal. This is fate. Escape our fate, find our destiny, the good kind of destiny. So what? Well, in order to, so there are two ultimate goals in philosophy, this level and this level, as well as all the other things we mentioned that we are using to get there, so that we develop an art of it, the art of dialectic. We can understand it. It's not just a glimpse. We can use it to benefit people here, and maybe even people here who are trying to make this journey. That's the idea of art as a question. Is that art? Is that benefit? Is that virtue? By the way, the question we started with was, can virtue be taught? Can you teach someone to function as a dialectician in this way? So we have these questions. And so what we are learning is the method, or is the logos. This questioning or dialectic, the logos or the dialectic. So these are the three big terms. The logos, the greater honorific, and the self. And formally in the Parmenides, we haven't gotten into the Parmenides past the first hypothesis, but the first hypothesis applies to that. The second, that's Parmenides' idea of self. And the other ideas of self or experiences of yourself can be here. In the second hypothesis, there are 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The second is this realm. The third is the logos. The fourth is where we're up to as a species. Meaning we have to make the jump or the transition or the bounce. I like the word bounce. Make the bounce from the fourth hypothesis, group thinking, clans, teams, us versus them, I win at the expense of you losing. That level of thinking of the fourth hypothesis, we have to bounce into the third, because the third has the logos. And the logos, as we just saw, is necessary for third hypothesis of Parmenides, is necessary for the bounce. And normally they say it's a jump or it's a leap, because the gap between these realms, there is a gap. That's why they're incommensurate. Like this is liters and this is meters. They don't fit together. Can't say how many liters of that marathon did you run. Those terms, they don't apply. That's called incommensurate. But the thing that does apply in a new kind of way is the logos. So it applies differently, but logos is what continues, and therefore allows us a kind of bridge, a logos bridge, which is the name of my band. Logos bridge. So, logos, the three big ideas, the third hypothesis, which allows us to reach both second and first. Logos, second is being, first is the oneself. So what? So, Socrates, what? So knowing that, we can appreciate and get the message from Socrates maybe a little better. So he has been benefited because his self-opinions, opinions about self, have been awakened as if from a dream. So if somebody, you, right? You, yep, should continue asking questions. Logos, dialectic. Questioning who? Their self, the ultimate, the highest, the first. About these selves, what are we asking about? The eidos in being, the honorific. That's selves plural refers to the honorific level. So there's our three levels. So we're learning a bit more about the dialectic. The dialectic is us practicing to participate on the three higher dimensions of reality, the first, second, and first, second, and third, which is exactly what we need to do as an individual and as a species. So we're learning more about what it means to do dialectic. Asking questions. Who are you asking? The self. Ooh, what's that? Look for it. If it had, no, I won't. I asked a master dialectician about that once, and he gave a funny answer. I'll talk about it later. Continue asking self about these selves, often and in many ways. Okay, so highlight that too. Often have and in many ways, so many sorts of dialectics. That's good. You have lots of excuses to meet your intelligent and caring friend for coffee now, because if it's the best kind of friend, someone who is also interested in this, understanding the dialectic to purify themselves from their unsuspected ignorance, and also to reach their highest destiny, and through understanding so they can do it artfully and also extend that art to benefit others. That's the best kind of person. If you know someone like that, you now have an excuse to meet up with them for coffee. And I'm out of coffee. That's a bad sign for the stream. Because here it says Socrates is saying, hey, keep doing this often and in many ways. Not just, hey, we had coffee yesterday. Oh, yes, but on 85C of the Meno, it says we have to continue to question self about these selves, these aspects of true beings, principles, and causes, often and in many ways. So you really should, said Socrates, have coffee with me again today. And your friend will say, you got me, and then we'll clap. And then, because it's such a beautiful friend who does this, because they're clapping, everyone around will start clapping too. They'll start a slow clap like in the movies. And then all of a sudden everyone will start clapping. And cheering. And then they'll go to coffee with you. And that's exactly what will happen. Because we do it often and in many ways. And they'll say, well, can't you have coffee with someone else today? And you say, how many other philosophers do you know? How many other human beings who have entered the game of freeing themselves from the slave dialectic role of their pathologos and actually trying to master the dialectic themselves? How many people? Because we can invite them to coffee as well. Hopefully there'll be more people and it'll be a great time. So continue to question self about these selves often and in many ways. You know that when they are brought to completion, so there is an end. So Socrates is saying, hey, make sure you always bring your homies to completion. Self will know about these selves no less accurately. And there's that weird negative. So when we see these negatives, we have to flip it. So positively, we will know them accurately. Continuing to ask someone like this questions like these about the self of that person, often in many ways, they can be brought to completion. There is a state of knowing about themselves. That's important. It's not just an opinion. You can know it, which is neat. Is it not so then? So another conclusion, that self will know nothing by teaching, but by questioning. Another level, what does it mean to be a teacher? Because our question is, can virtue be taught? Well, Socrates is saying, hey, you will know nothing by teaching. So not only is that original question that Meno asked, can virtue be taught, out of his league because he doesn't know what virtue is? Also, why ask that question? It's like people saying, I have a right to my own opinion. Why are you insisting to do that bad thing? You have a right to reflect on your opinions. You just have opinions. No one tells you to have opinions. You don't need a right to have them. You just have them. They're also bad and the cause of problems. The more you love them and are loyal to them at the expense of actual understanding, the worse kind of a dick you will be. Same here. Why do you want to teach virtue, considering self will know nothing by teaching, but only through questioning? Really highlights the other thing that we've seen time and time again, punishment, whether it's spanking a kid, drop kicking a puppy, or a prison system or even war and genocide. Doesn't freaking do anything good. Why? Because if the problems of humanity are problems of ignorance, including false opinions and belief, then self will gain no knowledge through teaching them a lesson. There. 85D. Someone hold that up at a wrestling. Socrates, Meno, 35D. Stone Cold Steve Austin says,
What?
and he says,
What?
and then he says, self will know nothing through teaching them a lesson. So I'm going to put down my wrestling underpants. Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't really have anything to put down other than his black Speedos. All right. I'm putting down my Speedos, and I'm not going to wrestle to teach the Undertaker a lesson. Don't know who's the good wrestlers right now. Because you know nothing through teaching, it's through questioning. So that's what's going to happen in wrestling, maybe. Self will know nothing by teaching but by questioning, restoring the self-knowledge. Wow, this is a sentence. Restoring the self-knowledge that arises from self. So not only are we learning that this dialectic process of questions is what helps people and is what allows for knowing, we're learning about what knowledge itself is. It arises from self. Socrates knows something about knowledge, so that often misquoted thing that you see on Facebook from Socrates, I am wisest because I know nothing, ain't true. It wasn't true in the original text, but it can't be true if he knows what knowledge is, and that it arises from self, and it's something we restore through the dialectic, so a kind of remembering. Wow! Where's my... I've lost my drops.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
There we go. I think my USB thing just stopped working. Knowledge of self, self-knowledge. So not only it's knowledge, self-knowledge, we can ask a question. Is this the highest form of knowledge because it's the honorific self-knowledge? Is it a knowledge about self? Is it a knowledge about all the particulars? What level of self, these guys here, is he referring to when he says self-knowledge? That's a question. Keep it. But also it arises from self. What does that mean? Does it tell us something about this? About reality? If self-knowledge, the honorific, if self-knowledge is here, what's the relationship of the one self? Because he's saying this self-knowledge that we awaken through the dialectic questions. Oh, not only is any sort of violence or punishment or genocide or exploitation through the prison system and wealth inequality or capitalism, not only is all of that bad because you don't teach people a lesson, you ask them questions. So this, we're just teaching them a lesson not to be poor, not to be lazy, or whatever, not to be Palestinian. Another reason why it doesn't work is questions. How does war facilitate questions? Asking questions. So having everyone's material needs met easily, quickly, efficiently, renewably, sustainably, so we are free to wonder and ask questions, not in the interest of catching someone wrong so you can crucify them or destroy their race or justify enslaving them, capitalism, not doing it for that, but to explore the nature of self, mind, reality, and master the dialectic. So another reason why punishment doesn't work, questions work. Questions. And if you are punishing someone, you ain't asking any questions. Or dumb torture questions or something like that. So we had self, knowledge. Whoops, no space. We have self-knowledge coming down in this way. When we had the dialectic or questions allowing us to go up. So continue asking self lots of questions about being in many ways and often. What was it? Often and in many ways, because only through that do we benefit. And gain self-knowledge. Meno says yes, so it must be true. Yes. And I've lost my drop. But is not that which recovers self-knowledge within self-recollection? So now that we've come to another conclusion, so we've got, maybe this is the second dialectic we've read today, we seem to be getting to the conclusion. Why? Because we are coming back around with a new insight about what we did and coming up with a new definition. We are defining it. We're putting a label on it. That thing Meno can't do. Actually define his terms. Actually understand the thing. That's what we're doing. And we're calling it, I don't have a drop, recollection. Very much so. So it's a good place to say goodbye for today. Recollection. We've come to some insights about aporia, about dialectic, about defining things, about a benefit, about how important it is to find the best kinds of people who are open to this, open to getting into this. I suggest or looking for people who are already intelligent and have a good heart and who have already shown an interest in doing activities that improve themselves in whatever way, self-development courses or something like that, or even cooking courses, anything like that. Those would be the people to look to see if you can make friends with them. And then once you've made friends with them, you can continue questioning their self about these selves and being, often in many ways, so that they can be brought to completion. Always good to bring your friends to completion. That completion is, of course, that they will know about themselves. They will gain knowledge. By the way, if that's the best way of doing it, through not by teaching but by questions, we can also say that we are restoring self-knowledge that arises from self. So all knowable things, all knowledge is within self and from self already. Our job is to awaken it, which is the title of the podcast. Reawakening philosophy. Awakening what was once awake. And by the way, we could call that recollection. And if you find a friend like that and you convince them to be friends with you in this kind of a way, maybe you share enough about what you think friendship is and it's to do with this, developing and sharing intelligence and care on the natural path of freeing yourself from being a slave to an unsuspected false dialectic, and using that freedom together to master the dialectic yourself, allowing you to recover the self-knowledge of all of the selves from self. And then maybe, once that's happened, your coffee meetups with your friend will now be asking questions about the self, the cause even of those selves in being. And ask them to join the channel or join the Discord to share their thoughts, insights, puzzles with the rest of the community. And by the way, if you do find someone that's special, remember to quote 85C whenever they refuse to have coffee with you. Socrates says, often and in many ways. So let's have a different dialectic today. Otherwise, I'm telling Dad, and Dad is Socrates. Good luck in finding someone like that and having these sorts of conversations. once again, please share your success with the rest of us on the channel. You can like and subscribe on YouTube. You can follow on Twitch. And if you join the Discord, there should be a link below. You can get notifications whenever we go live, so you can follow along and ask questions and read along in the chat. Also, there's a free link to the text below as well. I hope you had fun today. And yeah, I hope you had something to be aporia about. To be confused and puzzled and all stung and at sea, whilst continuing to ask questions either of yourself or from your friend, so that the combination of those two together, the open, curious state of mind and the dialectic questions of self through understanding, can come together to recover your memory of selves. Let us know how you go. Thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Where are my drops? I have to push them. And I'll see you next time.